I did it all for the money. When the player had to eat that one, the damn thing funny. Hey, I did it all for the money. Hey, I did it all before. Rob people so dope. Gang banging, shooting pistols, running from the dance folks. And I was known for eating anything your ass folks. Soft, hard, green, brown, niggas even had throat.
Welcome to the Playing with the Church Money podcast. I'm your host, Brother Will. Today we're going to talk about the mothers who came together for the Gun Violence Memorial Project in D.C. So we had some mothers from Albuquerque. Some of the mothers, a lot of people know. I want to give my condolences to Devin Haney's mother, basketball player from Los Lunas High School. He played with my son for a couple of years and against them for 1 year when they were in middle school. And very good kid, very respectable kid. You had the mother of Jaden Chavez Silver, another very respectable kid in the community who got gunned down. And for the most part, I'm just going to say the majority of all the kids who were gunned down in the community have been respectable kids nonetheless. You have just bad situations that happen in society, and unfortunately gun violence is something that we see too often. We don't see a lot of this support for you. You'll see the support for the mothers, initially when it happens, but you don't. It kind of fades away and it kind of goes away. You didn't really see it. It's not really. It wasn't like a big push when they did Mothers Against Drunk Driving and stuff like that. It's not a big national push for that. And I think one of the reasons is that you have a lot of mixed feelings when it comes down to this, because you're going to have people who didn't get justice, people who were demonized as criminals, and so on and so forth. And I think now you have, stemming from the Mike Brown shooting, George Floyd, and so many different cases, Tamir Rice, that you have a lot of people paying close attention to this a little bit more. I think when Trayvon got killed, that really put a spotlight on some of the inconsistencies that you have, and you kind of see that with some of the cases that are going on here. And so I'm going to also touch on that as well, some of the cases that are going on in our city. It's going to be kind of a follow-up of the Darian Bashir case, and we're going to touch on the Gun Violence Memorial Project and the mothers of some of the gun violence victims. In 2015, you had two very similar cases we'll talk about. You had the Jacquees Lewis skate park murder, and you had the Jaden Chavez Silver murder. Both kids were at parties, you could say, where there was underage kids, and a fight broke out, and it escalated into a shooting, and two teenagers were killed, miles apart, like within 2 miles apart, I want to say. These two cases were handled very, very, very differently. The Jaden Chavez Smith case was just as tragic as the Jacquees Lewis case, but they were handled very different by the community, very different by the police, very different by the media. Jaden Chavez Smith's murder was just plain and simple as that. They framed it as a tragic murder, caught the kids initially who they thought did it, and it was almost like a clean-cut case. But with the Jacquees Lewis murder, even though there was video of, you had, we'll just run down the facts again. You had the murderer, Greg Buchanan. He was 22 years old at the time, out on bond for dealing meth. Took a gun to a underage birthday party for a 17-year-old at a skate park, which is in, prohibited to have firearms and alcohol that he said they went to this park with. So he's out on bond for dealing meth. He decides to go to an underage party at a park. That's one violation of the law. Decides to take a firearm, which now he's breaking the conditions of his release, and he's partying with underage kids. So he's a firearm at a park, partying with underage kids, and also he bought liquor there. So he's contributing to the delinquency of minors. So he has, I'm pretty sure the firearm and the alcohol being on bond, that should have been extra charge. So he's already committing a crime. And then in the commission of this crime, there's a clear video that shows Jacquees Lewis walking away from the little scuffle that happened, and Greg Buchanan, you could hear people saying, Greg, Greg, Greg. He pursues Jacquees Lewis, starts a fight. Jacquees Lewis beats him up. He continues to walk. Another adult jumps in Jacquees Lewis' face, tries to fight him. So he fights 3 adults, walks away. Then moments later, Greg Buchanan shoots him. This gets framed as Jacquees Lewis is the aggressor. He had a gun, even though you can clearly see he had like a white glove on. So when he was out there pointing, that's what they say, oh, well, he was holding a gun, even though you can clear as day see you had the police get to the scene, totally disregard any crimes Greg Buchanan committed, and said, we're on your side. So it was 2 different approaches to the way they dealt with the teenage deaths, even though they clearly had one person at this case. They had to investigate and find Jaden Chavez Silver's murderer, but they found him nonetheless. So we'll get to that part of the story. But the one difference that really stood out more to me is the way that they packaged it as, I'm not the families of the victims. This is the media and politicians, law enforcement, and the politicians. So they packaged Jacquees Lewis as the problem. He was out there, and when it came down to Jaden Chavez Smith, he was the victim, and so we need change. Politicians came to his mother to try to create a bill for Jaden Chavez Smith, which I believe there was a bill, or they're still working, or I'm pretty sure there was a bill created, some kind of bill. But they didn't do that for Jacquees Lewis's mother at all. It was completely, totally different. There were videos that they didn't want to be released from personal people's cell phones and so on and so forth that they had to fight for. I believe Jaden Chavez sued the city because the dispatcher, when they called and said, someone shot here, I want to say the lady said something stupid like, deal with it or something. Don't yell at me. You're something real unprofessional. And so they ended up settling with her. Now, the other issue is the shooter in the Jaden Chavez Silver case was Donovan Maez. His mother, Stephanie Maez, was I want to say a state representative. She may have been a legislator, but she was a Democratic politician. And her son, had issues with drugs and so on. So he ended up going to jail, getting arrested for that. Somehow, he ended up getting off. Now, I'm not sure what was going on, but I know she's a pretty strong advocate for police reform because she feels that her son was falsely accused, arrested, and I believe they also have a lawsuit with the city. So two very different cases. You have, I think they finally found the real person who shot him. But here you have one person who, I want to say the Donovan Maez, still is having some issues with crime or committed some crime afterwards, or is having some drug issues in his life still. But these people are able to fight for their kids and kind of put the front up And so it, yeah, he was wrong, he was false, and it was wrong. But then no one, all those people who commentated on, the false arrest, they didn't want to speak nothing about the Jacquees Lewis case and those injustices. And it just goes back to the mishandling by the current district attorney and the previous two district attorneys, the interim and the Kerry Brandenburg. So you had Kerry Brandenburg at Perea and the current DA Raul Torres right now that all dropped the ball on this case. These are just some of, it's just so inconsistent, but you can see that they'll sweep certain stuff up under the rug. Now, I'm not saying she used her privilege, because she is actually out there genuinely fighting for police reform. Like, she is out there genuinely one of these people who are fighting for police reform for something that she felt was done wrongly to her son. So I'm not going to sit here and say that this lady's using her political power, because she actually set out to do something and gain results from it. Her son was freed, and she's either in the lawsuit or she's currently pushing for these changes. These same people, who helped her advocate, who helped Jaden Chavez Smith advocate, they don't come, it's very rare that they come to the community to speak with the victims from our community. Like I said, I don't believe they ever came to Jacquees Lewis' mother and said, hey, we need to make legislation so people out on bond, don't commit gun crimes and kill teenagers. But that was never framed as a narrative. So that just goes to show you there's double standards and a lot of inconsistencies when the media and these politicians package these type of tragic events that happen in our community to our kids. They will use these events as leverage and pick and choose sides when they want to. So just be mindful of that. I think now with the current atmosphere of political justice, I think it's getting harder and harder, but we're seeing these things still play out in front of us. So right now, currently, you had a lot of high profile cases all over the country, dealing from January 6th to the protest shootings to the Ahmaud Arbery shooting. We just had a very, I'm just going to say, controversial trial, because that's how I look at it. This is my opinion. But the Darian Bashir case, to me, without seeing, and we're going to try to seek these records out, because we need to see for ourselves, because now, and this is the media just packages this stuff, So like I said previously, they packaged it like Bashir, like Darian was the aggressor, and Jackson Weller was just minding his business. And then after his conviction, the news, again, this, like I'm saying, this is how they package this and present this. So the news says, even though there were reports that Jackson Weller was in a fight, and it may have been with someone who's with Darian Bashir. So if somebody's in a fight, again, this is how they package these things. If someone's in a fight and someone defends themselves against an aggressor, like I've spoke on my previous video, I've had issues with UNM football players. We used to have this issue with some of the guys that come off the Air Force base, to come party downtown and so on and so forth. We've had scuffles and fights with these people. So I don't want to I want to be very fair about this. If you have people that come from out of town and they get aggressive because they're athletes, the normal young guy from the community has to defend themselves. And so I've had to jump in when I've seen a 6'5", 200-pound football player try to jump on one of the little guys from my neighborhood. I'm in a suit and tie like I am right now, except I had the coat on because I just got off work. So I stopped by to have me a drink at where my buddy DJ's at. Next thing I know, I see a few people I know go over to. As I'm walking over there, I see the whole little melee about to jump off, and I'm not about to let someone 6'5" jump on somebody that's, 5'4". So I go over, hey, what's going on, man? Hey, come on, man, let's get up out of this, and Buddy try to look, man, it's a misunderstanding. I don't know what's going on, because that's what my friend said. I don't know, he was looking at me, and next thing I know, they're over here. I don't even know him. So it was a misunderstanding. He thought he was looking at him. He thought he was looking at him. Just that easy. Let's go, man. It's misunderstanding. So next thing I know, he starts saying something to me, and I'm trying to explain to him, look, man, it's a misunderstanding. So he got that. But then somewhere in the conversation, as I'm leaving, I don't know if he felt like I was slick talking or if he felt like he's going to go do something, but Buddy grabbed me. So next thing I know, I reverse grab him, security pounce, and I no, misunderstanding, because it was all a misunderstanding. The next week comes around, the little guys from the neighborhood are in there. What happens? They see the guy, he talk, and they end up beating him up. And these are things that happen. So we have this. It was framed and packaged a certain way, and then the details. You have testimony. You have one of the key witnesses who. The police say he identified Bashir, that he identified Darian. The man gets on the stand and says, I'm going to be honest, I've never seen this man ever in my life. I've never seen him before. I don't know why I'm even here. So I'm not understanding why the prosecution would put this person on their witness list knowing, was this something that was coerced just so they could arrest Darian? And these are some of the questions we have to ask, but it's packaged a certain way. So he was found guilty, first-degree murder, and he has other cases pending. So he's facing life in jail without the possibility of parole. We need to look at these videos so we can have a better judgment, and let this be a lesson to you kids out there. Stay out and away from the nonsense. If you have to defend yourself, you have to defend yourself. So if you have a UNM athlete, I don't care who they are. I don't care if they're a politician, if they're a pastor, a mayor. If someone's getting aggressive with you, I don't care who they are, and you feel like you have to defend yourself, that is your right. Just make sure you're out there moving accordingly. But that is your right. So let that be known. I don't want people to take this, because we've had another case here. And this is where I'm going to make a comparison to the Kyle Rittenhouse case. You had Darian Mills. Darian Mills was shot a year prior, 2 years ago. He sees the person who shot him at a gas station a few months ago. They get into a verbal exchange. The person tells him, I should have finished you when I shot you last year. He feels threatened, pulls out his firearm, shoots the guy. Rest in peace. Condolences to his family. He gets denied bond, even though he says, I had PTSD, I was in fear for my life. The judge, out of her mouth, said his PTSD should have subsided. I don't think if you ask that police officer who got shot 2 years ago, doing the traffic stop over by Montgomery and San Mateo, when he was doing the traffic, I bet if you ask him, his PTSD has not subsided, and you would not say that to him. He was denied bond. Here you have Kyle Rittenhouse. You have Kyle Rittenhouse, and if you have not been watching this, you need to tune in so you can see how the judge in this case is almost acting like the third or the second attorney for Rittenhouse. I've never seen nothing like this. It's crazy. So You have Kyle Rittenhouse. Here's an underage person who crosses over state lines with a firearm, with a rifle, with a semi-automatic rifle, high capacity rifle, crosses state lines to protect some property owners. For one, he said he was asked to by the property owner. So for one, you're asking an underage person to defend your property. What is that? Is that contributing to the delinquency? He's not even supposed to have a gun. So you have, just, if you go back and look, I'm just going to advise you to go look at the court proceedings for this case, and it's going to discuss you some of the stuff that the judge is doing. But this kid was allowed to have a bond. He just killed 2 people. He gets out on bond. He's taking pictures. He's profiting off of killing some people. He is literally profiting off of killing some people with GoFundMe's. These people raised so much money for him. I think his whole defense attorney, all that stuff was paid for. Like, but this kid gets bond. He's able to go. Now, here's an underage kid, like I already mentioned. He's underage and he goes. So now he's in a bar celebrating that he killed people with a shirt on that says free as F. And if any of the other people would have, if Darian Mills, Bashir, any of the people would have done that, it would have been, over. They would have wanted to revoke his bond and, put him in jail. He's antagonizing. So it just shows you there's always a double standard. Always a double standard. And if you ask that judge how she feels about Kyle Rittenhouse, I can guarantee you it's going to line up with some, crazy nonsense. And so we have to start calling these people out on the BS. And that's what my show's here for. That's what it's about. They want to play with the church money, so we're going to call them out for it. That's the double standard that you have. You have this kid gets denied bond. He was shot directly. He was directly affected by the person he shot. Versus Kyle Rittenhouse had no kind of just, it's crazy. It's crazy, but these are the double standards. And we just have to call these people out, these politicians, when they go to one community and they don't come to our community to try to make policies for change. We need to call them out for it. And we need to have our people out there who are going to be speaking and pushing our message and our narratives to these issues. These are the issues. They want to worry about critical race theory and all that when our kids can't even read. These people for 4 years whined about draining the swamp, and our state is last in education. And for 4 years, these people stood behind all the politicians, drain the swamp, and our state still lasts in education. We had a Republican governor, Republican mayor in the biggest cities. We were still last in education. So let's not fool ourselves when it comes down to these exalting these politicians. That's the problem in our state. You have so much inconsistency. You have one case where they arrest another kid, his mother fights, gets her kid off, they find another murderer, she's pushing for legislation, Jaden Chavez. So you have people on both sides pushing. One's pushing for police reform, one's pushing for crime policies. But they don't come to Jacquees Lewis' mother and say, hey, we see that your son got killed by somebody who was out on bond, contributed to the delinquency of minor. None of that happened with her. So it just goes to show you, when it comes down to certain issues in our community, they're all over the place. They don't know what the hell they're doing. It's time for us to start stepping up, calling these people out. So that's what I'm doing. Look at it across the board, nationwide. It's not nothing that I could say. It's just these people pick and choose. They're so inconsistent. So we need people who aren't just going to sit up there and pom and cheer. Let's talk about some issues. Let's get up here and talk about some issues, whether it's issues from our community issues that are going on a worldwide, national basis, but we need to talk about these issues because it happens and you can clearly see it. So y'all stay focused, keep y'all head up. All the families involved in some of these cases, to the Bashir family, y'all keep y'all head up in y'all fight. Condolences to the Weller family, the Jaden Chavez Silver family, Devin Hayborn's family, Jacquees Lewis family, Benny Hargrove's family. It's hard right now, you know, to watch this, but it's something that's happening. So we need to stay focused and, you know, pay attention to your kids. You know, we're the last ultimate stop for the behavior. Take your kid's phone. Get in your kid's phone. You think they gonna be mad? Yeah, they're gonna be mad, but you gonna be mad when your kid end up in a coffin. So take that phone, get in, go see what they friends is doing. Pop up. Put his location on your phone so you can go see where he at. And that's what you people need to do. Stop patty caking with your kids, because they out here dying, and it's other people kids that's going to jail for it. It's sad, you know. It's sad. One of my other friends, and I want to say he could be related to Benny Hargrove, but Mr. Dobbins, he got killed downtown, and the person arrested for it is so sad, you know. But it was another brother, Asad Moody, and it's sad because we all know each other. All our families know each other. All our families know each other. Our kids should not be out here killing each other over these gangs. So this is our problem in our community, and we must deal this and address this. This isn't nobody else's issue but our issue, because our kids shouldn't be killing each other, man. This is so sad. It's so sad. But we have to put an end to that. We have to be able to provide our kids with something else. They shouldn't be out here. So whatever kind of training, whatever kind of businesses we need to put together as fathers and mothers in our community, we need to come together and talk about it. We can come together and protest, and we can come together and do all this other stuff, but it's very rare that we're coming together for our kids, to invest in our kids. So, you know, I spoke about the opportunities we have, and this is the best opportunity right now that we have to dealing with our kids. No other time than now, because they're our kids. I don't want to go to none of my kids' funeral, and I know none of my friends want to go to none of their kids' funeral, even though some of them have already had to do that. The Dobbins murder downtown is supposedly was mistaken identity, but it happened nonetheless. And then Asad Moody and a few other people got arrested from the community, and it's all black, you know. So we need to stop that. You know, those families should not be having to deal with this right now as a community. We should not be having to deal with this. So I want to, you know, give my condolences to the Dobbins family. And it's just sad, man. We should not be, our kids shouldn't be killing each other. We went through so much growing up in the 90s, and some of the people in the 2000s who, these is y'all kids now, you know. So we got work to do, y'all. We got work to do, but just things we need to point out in our community, discussions we need to have. So on that note, y'all stop playing with the church money. Stay blessed.
I did it all for the money. Hey, I did it all for the money. When a player had to eat, that one a damn thing funny. Hey, I did it all for the money. Hey, I did it all before. Rob people so dope. Gang banging, shooting pistols, running from the dance folks. And I was known for getting anything you asked for.